The Cat Who Found Christmas. He was just a cold stray cat following a scent until he found the one thing he wasn't looking for, a family. On the edge of town, where the houses began to thin and the woods leaned close to listen, there lived a small gray cat with a torn ear and eyes the color of old honey. No one knew his name. He didn't belong to anyone, and yet somehow he belonged everywhere. The children who saw him passing on their way to school called him Whisper, because he moved so quietly through the snow that even the birds didn't startle. He slept where he could, under porches, in empty sheds, or curled behind the bakery's warm vent. He was not thin, for he was clever, and the people of Evergreen Lane were kind. But as the days grew short and Christmas lights began to blink in every window, Whisper felt something he couldn't name. It wasn't hunger, it wasn't cold, it was a kind of wanting, soft, aching, and unfamiliar. He would sit at the edge of the street each evening, tail tucked around his paws, watching through frosted windows. Inside, families gathered near trees that glowed like warm stars. Children laughed, old songs drifted through the glass, and the air shimmered with the promise of belonging. Whisper would tilt his head, listening. Then, when the last carol ended, he'd turn and disappear into the quiet again. The Heart's Winter, a lonely Christmas Eve. On Christmas Eve, the snow began early. Big lazy flakes fell from a pearl-colored sky, covering everything in white softness. The town looked like a painting come to life. Rooftops sugared with snow, lampposts wearing scarves of garland, and chimneys whispering warmth. Whisper padded through the streets, his paw prints the only marks on the untouched snow. He stopped by the bakery, where Mrs. Holden had left out a saucer of milk, as she always did. "Thank you," he seemed to purr, though she couldn't hear him from inside. He drank, then wandered on. As he passed the toy store, he paused. In the window stood a tall Christmas tree made entirely of wooden blocks. At the top sat a small carved cat, painted white with gold eyes. Whisper blinked up at it. The cat looked proud, certain of its place. Whisper flicked his tail once, unsure what that felt like. The snow thickened, the streets emptied. One by one, the lights behind the curtains went out, until only the glow from the lampposts remained. Whisper turned toward the woods. That's where he always spent the coldest nights, in a hollow beneath an old oak. But when he reached the edge of the trees, he stopped. Something on the wind made him turn back, a sound so faint it might have been a dream. It was a whimper, a child's whimper. He followed it. The spark of wonder. The door with the red ribbon. The sound led him down a narrow lane where the snow lay thick and still. At the end stood a small cottage, its porch wrapped in garland, its door tied with a big red ribbon. Through the window, a single candle burned beside a plate of cookies and a glass of milk. But the sound didn't come from inside. It came from the porch. There, huddled on the top step, sat a little girl. She was bundled in a blanket that had slipped off her shoulders, and her mitten was missing from one hand. Tears had made shiny paths down her cheeks. Whisper crept closer, silent as snowfall. The girl sniffled. "Oh, hello," she whispered back, surprised. She reached out a trembling hand. Whisper hesitated only a moment before pressing his head gently into her palm. "You're cold," she said softly. "Me too." She looked toward the darkened street. "I ran out to see if Santa came yet, but the door closed behind me. Mommy and Daddy are asleep, and I can't reach the handle." Her lip trembled. "I knocked, but they didn't hear. Whisper blinked slowly, then turned toward the door. He could see the gap beneath it where warm air flowed out, a golden promise of safety. The girl's teeth chattered. "It's okay," she said bravely. "Maybe I'll just wait. Someone will come." But the snow kept falling, and Whisper knew waiting wouldn't be enough. He walked to the door, stretched up on his hind legs, and pawed at the wood. The bell above it jingled faintly. No answer. He tried again. This time the sound rang clearer. Inside, somewhere down a hallway, a light flickered on. Footsteps. The door opened, and a woman in a robe and slippers appeared, blinking in disbelief. "Emma? Oh, sweetheart." The girl tumbled into her arms, sobbing with relief. Her mother scooped her up, murmuring comforts, brushing snow from her hair. Then she noticed the cat sitting neatly at the edge of the porch, tail curled around his paws, eyes shining like coins in the light. "And who's this Christmas angel?" she asked, voice breaking into a laugh. Emma turned in her mother's arms. "He found me," she said. "He made me brave." The woman stepped forward. "Well then, he deserves a warm meal." She held the door wide. Warmth spilled out like sunlight. For the first time in his life, Whisper hesitated. He had never been inside. The gift within, the warm place. Emma stretched out her small hand. "Come on," she said simply. "It's Christmas." That word seemed to mean something, even to him. Whisper padded forward, one careful step at a time, until his paws met the rug. The air was full of cinnamon, pine, and laughter waiting to happen. Behind him the door closed softly, keeping the winter on the right side of the world. Emma's father appeared, sleepy-eyed and startled. "Well, look who's come in from the cold," he said. He fetched a bowl, poured milk, and set it near the fireplace. "There you go, friend." Whisper drank, feeling warmth spread from his paws up to his ears. The firelight shimmered across the ornaments on the tree, and somewhere in the house, a clock chimed midnight. Emma knelt beside him, whispering the way you speak to something fragile. "Thank you for finding me." He blinked up at her, slow and sure. The cat's version of a promise. "Can he stay, Mom?" she asked, clutching her blanket around her shoulders. "Just tonight?" Her mother smiled. "I think he's earned that much." Whisper curled by the hearth, and before long, Emma had fallen asleep beside him, her hand resting gently on his back. Outside, the snow fell quietly, but inside, everything glowed. The whisper of Christmas, finding home. In the morning, the world was white and new. The ribbon on the door had gathered a soft crown of snow, and sunlight turned every icicle into a prism. Emma woke first. She looked around the living room, expecting to find her gray friend still curled by the fire. But the spot was empty, except for a small paw print in the ashes and a bit of pine needle clinging to the rug. "Mom?" she called. "The cat's gone." Her mother came to the window. "Maybe he went exploring. You know how cats are." Emma pressed her nose to the glass. Outside, the snow was bright and endless. "Do you think he'll come back?" Her mother smiled. "If he wants to. Cats always know where they belong." That afternoon, as the family opened presents and laughter filled the room, a sound came from the porch. A soft meow. Emma ran to the door and pulled it open. There sat Whisper, his fur dusted with snow, a small sprig of holly caught in his whiskers, as if he'd brought it as a gift. "You did come back," she squealed, hugging him gently. "You do belong." From that day forward, Whisper had a home. He slept on the couch, guarded the windows, and followed Emma everywhere she went. Each Christmas after that, he would sit by the candle in the window, as if standing watch, his tail flicking in rhythm with the flame. Sometimes, when the snow fell softly and the night was still, Emma's parents swore they heard faint purring even after the cat had wandered off to sleep, a sound so steady and content that it seemed to fill the whole house. Epilogue: The Cat Who Stayed. Years later, when Emma had grown and moved away, her parents still lit the candle each Christmas Eve, and sometimes, on nights when the snow was thick and the world seemed hushed, they'd look toward the porch and see paw prints leading up to the door. No one ever saw the cat again, but every Christmas morning, without fail, there would be a single gray hair caught in the rug by the hearth and a holly leaf on the windowsill. Her mother would smile and whisper, "He found his way home again." Because maybe Christmas isn't just a date or a tree or a song. Maybe it's that quiet moment when something lost remembers where it belongs. Maybe it's the warmth that waits patiently outside until someone opens the door. And maybe, if you listen closely on snowy nights, you can still hear him purring, soft, steady, and sure, somewhere between the wind and the firelight. And that's how Christmas found its way into another heart.